must pay the price.
All new chills and a shocking and...
Murderer! Murderer!
Do it! Do it! Do it! Do it!
My God, I can't believe it. I'm sure it's none of us.
Are you sure? What about those kids?
The snow's 10 feet deep and the phone lines are dead.
Get her! Get her! I love you!
We didn't break in. The door was open.
Oh, that goddamn Ralph never locks.
Were there any others?
Everyone else is dead.
We've lived here so long.
You can't live here any longer. The building's coming down. This is your relocation notice.
Where do you expect me to relocate? In a strange neighborhood halfway across the city? I've lived here for 38 years. I know this building, the streets of this neighborhood. They know me. I'm too old to learn over again.
I don't want my tenants disturbed. I'm superintendent here.
They are not your tenants. No one's paid any rent for months.
We paid the rent. They sent it back.
That's right. They don't want your money. They want you out of here.
Those people don't care about us. No reason for us to worry about what happens to them.
I'll kill any of you if you don't let me alone!
Curtains and silk brocades, parasol pianos and promenades, fun days once again.
Hey everybody, this is Shavar Ross, Reggie the Reckless, and you're listening to Hysteria Continues.
And indeed you are. Welcome back to the Hysteria Continues. This is episode 282. And this time we're having a double ender, which obviously won't be the first time for Erik, I'm sure.
Why?
What do you mean, why?
I don't know. It was the first button I pressed.
So we're reviewing, well, this time we're doing two sort of, I'm going to guess bad taste, black comedy, horror, proto-slashers, aren't we, Joseph? Was this your choice?
Oh, I mean, it's a listener pick. It's Joshua Gratton's choice, and I think his reasoning behind it was because one was a killer kid slasher or proto-slasher, and the other was a elderly proto-slasher, and I guess he wanted to hear the contrast between the two. And I picked up a little bit, but we'll get to that in the reviews.
Okay, yeah, it's an interesting. It's so obvious. It didn't occur until I rewatched it, and I suddenly thought, of course, that's what it is. It's kind of killing from each end of the age spectrum. So yeah, we should have fun with this one. We haven't done a proto slasher for a little while, so two come along at once, which is good. So. I take it everything is all good. Nathan, how are you doing today?
I'm doing okay. I was able to leave work a little bit early, so.
Excellent. And we've got, we were recording a couple of commentaries at the weekend, aren't we? This weekend. One of them is for Vinegar Syndrome, which I don't think we can announce what it is yet, but we will do. Are we allowed to say, I think you said last time, Joseph, didn't you, that we were doing one for Vinegar Syndrome?
Yeah, it is Vinegar Syndrome. I don't think we have the all clear for the announcement yet. I won't say anything else because someone might can figure this out. But yeah, it is Vinegar Syndrome.
Okay. Well, it might be, by the time this comes out, it may already, the proverbial cat might be out of the bag. So
it's Miss Congeniality 2, Armed and Fabulous.
Oh, Erik.
Oops.
You're going to get us in trouble with their HR.
Yeah. Well, you never know if we did some off-piste commentary tracks. Would that be your choice, Erik?
Miss Congeniality 2, Armed and Fabulous. Yeah, I prefer the first one, though.
I don't think I've seen it. So, anyway, let's move on. Where we're back on to the subject of horror, and that we're not talking about Erik's joke of the week. Are you going to give us two this time, Erik?
No, you're only getting one.
Well, we'll see. You've got enough time. It usually takes 5 seconds to make one up, so you've got enough time to make up another one. But anyway, have you seen anything you want to tell us about, Erik?
No.
No.
It's only been a week.
It has only been a week, yes. So, well, okay. Well, that's fair enough. Nathan, how about you?
I watched Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey.
Ah, okay.
Not bad. I guess pretty much what you should expect it to be, and it's got some great gore, no doubt there, like really good gore, but I don't know if I just was expecting more or what. It just to me, I mean, when it was over, I was like, well, that was all right, but I guess I was hoping for better than just all right. I mean, it is obviously a novelty that, you have these characters from this children's show who are homicidal maniacs now. They swing a mean sledgehammer, I'll tell you that. But, overall, it wasn't bad. It just is okay. It's a 5 out of 10.
It's a British film, isn't it?
Yes. They speak in British accents in this movie.
Oh, so is it quite classy, would you say?
I don't know if classy is the word for it.
No, probably not.
But like I said, the special effects are great, and there's some really good moments there for sure. There's like a great scene where they're being stalked in this indoor pool. I mean, that was a lot of fun. So, I mean, there is a lot to like. So, I feel like I'm, downing it a lot. I think I just, it didn't live up to my expectations.
Okay, well, fair enough. Has anyone else seen was it Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, or just Pooh? Not Pooh, no, wouldn't just be Pooh, Blood and Honey. That would be
Winnie the Plops.
Harold the Pooh. So, Joseph, if you had the pleasure.
No, I do have a copy, but I did not get around to it yet.
Okay. Not to worry. What about you, Erik?
No, and it's got awful reviews, and a 5 out of 10 Nathan film is surely a 1 out of 10 for the rest of us. No offense, Nathan.
I was going to say that Nathan, to find something that Nathan sounds even half-arsed about, it doesn't bode well. So, okay. Well, thank you. Who have we not? Well, no, Joseph. You said you had something recently seen.
Yeah, the only thing I've seen was the 2018 film Upgrade, the one by Lee Winnell from the Saw series, or at least the first Saw. And this is one I had sitting in my queue for a while, despite the fact that I could swear up and down that I'd seen it before. And I probably have, but just didn't remember anything about it because watching it, none of it felt at all familiar. But Any Horse, it kind of plays out like a semi-futuristic Death Wish. And it centers around this auto mechanic who's carjacked along with his wife by a gang of hoodlums. And this is not a spoiler because it happens early. She's killed and he's left like a quadriplegic. And basically you get kind of a RoboCop scenario here. He gets a chance to seek revenge when he's kind of fitted with this revolutionary microchip that essentially can do anything. And it turns him into this unstoppable assassin. And it even communicates with the hero through audio waves that only he can hear. And so that setup eventually leads to that Death Wish scenario of seeking revenge. And if that sounds moderately diverting or even ho-hum, Upgrade does have a lot of unexpected jet black humor and some really, really well-written plot twists I wouldn't dare spoil. But yeah, I really like this. I mean, it's kind of all over the place in some manner, but I had a lot of fun with it. There's some really jet black humor that I did not expect. The action scenes are filmed really well. I mean, it's got that kind of studio look to it that's, something like Erik would like or something. So, yeah, I mean, thumbs up graded for me. I like this one a lot. Have any of you guys seen it, Erik?
Yes, I did. I saw it when it came out. Can't remember a huge amount other than I did really like it, but it's one I need to revisit. But I am a fan of Lee Winnell's output. I generally find that all his films are, top-notch.
Yeah. Well, if I wouldn't say top-notch, I'd say at least watchable.
Yeah, really good. Entertaining.
Yeah, definitely entertaining. Nathan, have you seen this one?
Yes. I saw it a while back, and I do remember finding it really entertaining. If I'm remembering right, it was one that Wes wasn't really interested in, but as I was watching it, he actually kind of got interested in the film as well. So, yeah, I remember really liking it, but it's definitely been a while.
Okay. What about you, Justin?
No, I don't think I have. What was the name of it again?
Upgrade.
Oh, Upgrade. No, I did see Upgrade, but many moons ago, and I don't remember much about it, but I remember, because it's the guy in it who looks like the English actor, whose name escapes me now.
That could be anybody.
There are quite a lot of English actors.
No, who's the one that was in, it was the new Mad Max?
Oh, Tom Hardy. Yeah, his name, it's Logan Marshall Green. He was also in Prometheus.
They always get them confused because they look quite similar.
Yeah, they do look alike. But yeah, it's a decent little kind of sci-fi revenge thriller. I would recommend it.
Excellent. Okay. Well, there's another one to add to the queue to check it out, because I think last week when we recorded our top 3 of 2012, which wasn't that was on Saturday, wasn't it? We did that, so it was only a few days ago. So I was catching up with some movies. So I haven't seen very much. What I am catching up on or rereading is the novelization of Final Exam by Jeffrey Meyer. I've still got ripped to shreds the script I need to finish reading, and I'll sort of summarize that on Hysteria Lives, the Facebook page, and also get around to adding it to the Lost Slashers section when I get a chance. But of course, we're covering Final Exam for our Patreon commentary this month. And some bits, I don't think I ever read the whole thing before, but do you remember when we spoke before, I said that there was the added thing about Courtney making friends with an owl in the bell tower. Yeah, I wasn't on mushrooms or making it up. It was actually, she makes friends with, he's not only an owl, he's an albino owl with really bad mites, and his name is Clorox. And she feeds him cockroaches from her room.
Yeah, of course this happens in the novel, Justin.
It does, honestly.
Yeah, we believe you.
She's up in this bell tower, and there's a whole load of bells up there, and she plays music on them, and people give her special requests, like they want her to play Led Zeppelin. I'm not making this up. And there's another couple of things. You'll have to listen to the commentary to hear a bit more about this, but another couple of things is in the opening scene where the girl and the guy get murdered. Her sorority is called, and I'm not making this up, I promise you, is Smegma Magnus.
No.
Yes. So,
oh my God.
And what's the other last thing I was going to say was, it's only really sort of start. I'm on about chapter 4 at the moment, but Radish, of course, beloved Radish, his whole name in the thing is James Radinsky, and it says, expanding on his character, he makes money by translating diplomatic documents from Chinese into English. So if you want to hear more fascinating factoids from this, and also actually talking of the Brown stuff, this is an actual quote from the dialogue. Is her sphincters? How many sphincters one person have?
I think it's one, isn't it? Surely.
Oh my God!
It's a plural. So anyway, it says her sphincters deep relax as she evacuated, noticing the steaming ocean of night pouring in through remnants of cloth.
Ew.
So anyway, this is from the novelization of Final Exam by Jeffrey Moyer. There's going to be lots more interesting little factoids, and I'm going to be comparing it to what made it into the film. It's a very strange novelization.
Yeah, the sphincter scene didn't make it into the film, as far as I recall.
No. So anyway, so that's what I've been concentrating on: highbrow literary pursuits, as I'm sure you'll agree. So, talking of highbrow, it's time to take the lowbrow, and let's look at our double ender for this week. So, Joseph, do we have a TV spot or a trailer for Devil Times 5?
This is the trailer for Devil Times 5. I could not find a TV spot for it.
Okay, so we'll take it away after this.
Everyone has a secret nightmare about the ugliest way to die. Whatever yours may be, now it lives.
What are you yelling about?
Little people!
If you take them in, you'll be taken in, because there is no way to survive the Devil Times 5.
What about those kids?
You gotta be kidding.
Whatever you think they are, they're not. Whatever you think they won't do, they will.
What are they?
They're piranha.
You mean you feed those little babies To those big ugly things?
Here, you want to feed him? Not since Village of the Damned has death become so brutal or survival so hopeless.
You psychopathics! Leave her alone! Leave her alone!
One by one. Body by body. Death will come in its most dreaded form. They bring their own omen. And it is written in blood. The devil times 5 leaves nobody alive.
Who survives? Who would want to survive? 5 children in a freak bus accident are taken in by a caretaker and 3 vacationing couples. Soon, strange occurrences begin and each adult meets a horrible death. Will the surviving adults realize who the murderers are before it's too late? And that little synopsis was pilfered from the back of the Media VHS release from 1982. And Devil Times 5 is a film I've seen a few times before the show, but I always seem to forget most of it, which it might say more about my fading memory than it does the film. I won't spoil that just yet, but I do find this to be an enjoyably offbeat little movie. One that has that glorious 1974 kind of weirdo atmosphere going for it, and Leif Garrett in a hideous wig, which apparently was the result of reshoots and because Garrett had already cut his hair after the film had wrapped, though you actually see him place the wig atop his head in the film. So, I mean, either that's some kind of fourth wall breaking or a case of the we don't give a rat's ass, but regardless, the plot is perfectly summarized from the back of that VHS release, as there's not much more to it. And the motives of the murderous children are never really expounded upon beyond the children's personality types. I mean, one is a narcissist, one is amenable to coercion, one seems to be repressed, etc., etc. And so they kill the adult cast. That's basically what they're there for, is just to kill the adult cast. And the adult cast basically play fodder in this kind of Village of the Damned scenario and are, for me, they're probably infinitely more interesting, if not more likable, than the murderous little kids. First, you have Julie and Rick, who appear to be the mundane vanilla couple, except Julie will slap a bitch, and Rick has traces of that kind of 1970s misogynistic machismo you just don't see in movies today. They are joined by Julie's father, Papa Doc, who has to be the grumpiest character ever from any movie, and his lovely young wife, her name is actually Lovely, who in one scene attempts to bed the slow-witted handyman Ralph, and which leads to a really kind of hilarious cat fight with Julie that literally ends in one of the blandest stalemates of all time. Also on board is Boss Hogg himself, playing a conniving businessman named Harvey Beckman, and his wife Ruth. And, there are a few things that lift Devil Times 5 from being a mediocre horror movie to I don't want to say semi-respectable one, because this film's has its fair share of problems, but the first I think that I like was the rather painful and elaborate death scenes. For such an early 70s film, it's kind of brutal. And there's one character being doused in gasoline and set ablaze as she just screams in horror. And there's lots of throat slashings and impalements, and piranha are used to dispose of a corpse in a bathtub. Like I said earlier, the kids are given no real motive for such brutality, which I think gives the film an air of mystery and creepiness that certainly does its best to kind of negate some of the film's lesser qualities, which includes a kind of a slow middle portion and the characters you don't necessarily root for. Another is some really gorgeous cinematography, and the setting is really top notch. And I think that seems to shrug at the film's budget. It looks better than its budget is what I'm trying to say, but it also feels like there's a message here somewhere. Maybe, that of a biblical young will lead the old murderously scenario. I don't know. But ultimately for me, I think it's those elements kind of combined together in that cold, bleak 1974 atmosphere that gives Devil Times 5 more credit than it deserves. I'm not the biggest fan of killer kid flicks, but certainly this one kind of blazed a few trails and set somewhat of a tone that some would follow. I mean, like before, I would probably forget it in a few weeks' time, but I did have fun revisiting it for the show. So I suppose a marginal or slightly above marginal recommendation from me. It's not wonderful, but it is engaging. So, Justin, I get the sense that you're going to have a few things to say about the film. What did you think of Devil Times 5?
Well, like you, I have seen it. In fact, I've got the DVD release from 10, 15 years or so ago. I mean, it's a complicated film. It's a film that's got like a complicated production history. And from, I'm sure when we talk about some background, it was started by one director and finished by another, which is never usually a good sign. I mean, it has that thing I love about the kind of early to mid-70s exploitation horror, where you just get the kind of what the fuck kind of moments in it. You just kind of, the grindhouse moments, which kind of catch you off guard. I mean, for its time, and obviously the Killer Kids thing had been around, like, I can guess it started with like Village of the Damned, sort of based on the Midwich Cuckoos from the late 50s, early 60s. So, and then of course you had it's kind of an expansion, I kind of guess, as like the Bad Seed, where you've got the Killer Kid, but now you have it literally times 5. So it has all these kind of wonderful characters, and you've got like the old soak of the wife who, like in the 70s horror movies, everyone drinks all the time, which is wonderful. But you've got the Ruth character played by Shelley Morrison, who of course, as soon as I saw her, I recognised her, and of course it's she played Karen's maid in Will and Grace. Which the role she was best known for, but she's kind of pretty much drunk throughout the whole of this, drinking bottles of whiskey and brandy and everything. So no wonder she goes up like a Alicia Beacon towards the end of the movie. But that cat fight between Julie and Lovely is so 70s sort of proto dynasty cat fight. I'm surprised that
she even says bitch. She says you bitch right before she smacks her. I know Nathan probably enjoyed that scene, but go on anyway.
Well, I'm surprised given the amount of nylon and polyester there would have been in those, what they were wearing. I'm surprised they didn't go up in flames with all those carpet burns setting off an inferno. But it was kind of, it had all of that kind of strangeness to it. And the kids, it was strange because the way they played them, because they were so dispassionate, the children, that they literally, the original title I think was People Toys when it was released originally. So it was kind of the idea that these kids were just using these people as toys, and killing them was part of the game. So I mean, all the kids, they all, there's a varying degrees of acting in this, but it's kind of got that kind of, you never quite know where it's going to go, and if it's going to tip into really bad taste. But obviously there's a jet black vein of dark comedy running through it. I mean, I've got more to say about it, but one of the things, there's two more things I'll say. One is, I'm not sure how anyone survived that bus crash. Because at the beginning of the movie, the reason the kids escape is that they're being driven. They're like basically being driven in this very unsecure looking sort of minibus, and I think it says they've got like they're from like children's maximum security asylum, mental home or something. And the bus skids off this snowy road and then rolls down this embankment about 20 times. And all the adults, well, all but one adult is killed. All the kids just get out with like no injuries whatsoever.
Yeah, I was about to say, not only that, they just step out of the bus like nothing happened. I'm like, yeah, right.
And Leif Garrett's wig is still on even when he gets so. And Leif Garrett has you're right in the say more about it in the background, but because there were reshoots, but there's this kind of strange scene in it where Leif Garrett drags up and he's like this 11-year-old boy. He puts on a woman's wig and makeup, and then basically says about the about the character who plays Boss Hogg, you're mine now or something. It's kind of very strange. I don't know what the thought process was behind all of this, but I imagine there were probably quite a few Quaaludes and whiskey consumed when this was being written. Perhaps it was the 1973 when it was being shot. But the other two words I'll say before I hand it over to Erik, because I'm sure he'll expand on that, are wank and blowits.
Yep. I spotted that in the credits too. Executive producer Jordan Wank. Jordan Wank.
So what did you think of the film, Erik? Are you done, Justin?
Yeah, I'm done. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, yeah. What did you think of the film, Erik?
Yeah, I quite like it as well. I mean, like when I was rewatching it, I was completely unaware of the production history of the film, and parts of it just struck me as being really weird. As we said, Leif Garrett's wig. Like in some scenes, he has normal hair, and some scenes it's a wig. And then there's a scene where he takes off his wig and he's got short hair, and I just couldn't understand what was going on. And there was bits and pieces of it that didn't make sense to me, but they do now in retrospect. So the killer child subgenre, I really love things like Who Can Kill a Child and Bloody Birthday, and of course The Children from 1980. I love that film. The kids in this one I thought were slightly more palatable. I thought there was kind of a smugness to the ones in Bloody Birthday that made you really not like them, whereas in this one I thought they were more kind of laid back or something, and I felt that they sort of lacked any kind of threat until maybe the final 15 minutes or so. I liked the main couple, Rick and Julie. I thought they were fairly likable. Rick had a nice bum. I don't know if anyone else would agree with me on that. You have to suspend disbelief that these 5 kids can overpower these, how many adults? 6, is it? 7? They've got no supernatural abilities. You just kind of have to go with it. I thought the film was quite slow at the start. Even that first murder scene was really strangely shot, as if they were trying to fill time. It's a 6-minute slow-mo sequence shot in sepia for some reason, and it's kind of this jerky slow-mo, and it seems to take an age to kill this man who has survived the bus crash and has followed them to the house. Although it does have that novelty factor of seeing that girl who's dressed as the nun wielding a pitchfork, which I thought was quite good. I love the cat fight as well. Julie and Lovely fighting over, oh, you slept with my husband. Before they were together by what sounds of things, but still, it results in something that's pure dynasty, as you said. I like the fact that one of them was like head to toe in turquoise. It doesn't get more 70s than that. The murder methods were quite inventive. I thought, using the scythe or the sickle on the swing was, an interesting murder method. I mean, the effects aren't, great. This is a 1974 film, so you're not going to see sort of elaborate gore effects. But you can, what's there is lo-fi, but it packs a punch at times. I really liked that character who plays the fake nun. To me, she was the standout of the killer kids. There's something really eerie and detached about her because she never smiles. She never looks angry. She just has this kind of zen, evil vibe to her that I thought was really quite creepy. So for the first 3 quarters of the film, I thought it lacked a kind of intensity, but when they set that woman on fire, I thought the stakes were really upped then, and the film started resembling more of a Who Can Kill a Child type film, and the threat suddenly felt much more real and sinister. And there was no real cop-out at the end either, so it ends on kind of a downer. But there are bits of the film that I couldn't really work out. Like, that character, the Will and Grace lady, she goes out and confronts the character of Susan, who's one of the kids, or I think it's Susan is her name, and starts saying, I love you. And I'm like, what? What's this all about? Is she having a breakdown or something? Or does she know Susan? Or did anyone find that weird?
I think she's just kind of she's about to get set on fire. I think she's just trying to save her own life, maybe.
Okay, yeah. Well, I think she'd be better off just running.
Panic mode or something.
Be running in the opposite direction. Yeah. Are piranhas really that powerful and effective? I don't know if they are. Yeah, so I mean, I thought it was a good film. I don't think it's a great film. I think when you hear about the troubled production, it all kind of makes sense, particularly with Leif Garrett's hair. But yeah, it's a marginal thumbs up for me as well.
Cool. Nathan?
Yeah, I really like this one. Of course, it has that cat fight in it, which is probably the only thing I remembered about it before rewatching it again. And I think it's hysterical. I mean, it's just right out of a soap opera. And it's just perfect. So yeah, I absolutely love that moment. Particularly when they're just pushing each other on the bed, then on the floor. And then it's almost like one of them waits for the other one to slap her, just to then get that in. So I thought that was great. And like you said, it's such a anticlimactic ending to the fight because one of the other characters comes in, just kind of makes a comment, and they just stop fighting.
And it doesn't really have anything to do with the plot, as it turns out, either. I mean, it's not really referenced ever again, so...
No, it's just was thrown in there just to be in there. I guess, and I could see the whole idea about how the kids don't seem to be that much of a threat, for a bit of the film, because I don't know, it's like there's not that smugness like you were saying, Eric. They don't have that smarmy kind of attitude about it. They actually just seem very practical about what they're doing. I will say that, spoiler alert, like we were saying, it is a pretty downbeat ending because the kids basically get away with it. But the scene where Julie wakes up and sees Leif Garrett and he throws the spear through the glass window, I think is hysterical. Because I'm like, talk about good aim. He must have, inspired the killer from Fatal Games.
How would he even done that at the top of a ladder? Got enough traction to throw it through a window?
Just enough that it would actually stick right in her throat. And like I said, it's not like the window was open.
It's very hard to believe.
I like the ending where they're all just kind of sitting around with all the dead bodies. I guess that ending makes sense with the title People Toys. But yeah, overall, I did enjoy it. I think it's a lot of fun. And even though, the ending is kind of a downer, I don't know, I guess because the characters were just so, ridiculous. And like Joe saying, like the one dude, what's his name? The real grumpy guy.
Papa Doc.
Schwing.
They were they were using him as a snowman, weren't they?
Yep, it could have had an iced like ending.
What if he wasn't dead and they built that snowman around him? Then the iced ending would make sense, wouldn't it?
We were wrong to laugh at the ending of Iced.
Then I don't want to be right, Eric.
But yeah, I mean, it's definitely a fun movie. Definitely worth watching, especially if you love cheesy 70s flicks. So that's my Tupperware tuppence.
Ooh, Tupperware tuppence. Let's see then. I can't really think of what else to say other than I'm really curious what happened with Leif Garrett's hair. So if you guys want to move on to background, we can. Unless you have something else to say about the movie.
No, a background would be good. What have you got for us, Nathan?
I have the same thing that you had.
Oh, every time.
No. I've got some stuff. Okay.
IMDb.com.
Yeah. Wikipedia.com.
You know what? Y'all ain't getting my stuff. Gene Evans said he only did this film for the money.
Who's Gene Evans?
Gene Evans played a character called Papa Doc.
Okay. Schwing,
eh?
What do you think of the Boss Hog one, Eric?
He's okay. He's nice when he's working out in his shirt, in his vest and Y-fronts.
Well, okay. Well, thank you, Nathan, I think. Erik, what do you have for us?
Okay, well, when I sat down to watch Devil's Times 5, my copy came up with the title The Horrible House on the Hill, and I was like, ooh, is this the right film I'm watching? And it turns out that is an alternate title for it, along with People Toys and Devil Times 5. The kid who plays Brian, who's the kind of the military kid who's obsessed with addressing everyone as sergeant and all that type of thing. He went on to a successful career as a stuntman, alongside occasional roles, acting roles, and he appears in the 1994 film The Crow. So there we go. I didn't realize this. I was listening to the commentary track on the disc, and Dawn Lynn, who plays Mo, is the sister of Leif Garrett, of course, who plays whatever his character's name is. David, thank you. And their mother is Carolyn Steller, who plays Lovely. So the three, the mother and two children are in the film. John Duran, who plays Ralph, also wrote this film. Anytime you see red interior walls, that indicates it's a reshoot, because the reshoots are all done in California months and months after the fact, which explains why Leif Garrett's hair changes all the time, because he had it cut for another film. This is the one and only screen credit for producer Jordan Wank. Jordan Wank was not a movie producer. Jordan Wank was an attorney. Jordan Wank's career as a film producer only lasted one film, so Jordan Wank went back to being an attorney.
Thank you, Eric. What was his name again?
Jordan Wank.
Okay. And what was Sandra Blowett's role in this?
Sandra Blowett's. I can't remember what her role was, but yeah, I saw that popping up in the credits as well and giggled. And there's another Wank as well in the end credits who was a production manager or something, and I'm assuming...
Toby Wank,
yeah, I'm assuming that's maybe a brother of Jordan Wank. So the original director was Sean McGregor, who was fired after the shoot, because apparently, the film only uses, I think they said on the commentary, about 35 minutes of his footage, and the other hour is all reshoots in California. So so the bulk of his material he shot was deemed unusable. And David Sheldon, who is on the commentary track, who directed the reshoot, says that if he had successfully translated the script onto the screen, it would have been a very, very special film indeed. But as it is, he said it's a bit of a patchwork quilt. And David Sheldon then went on to work a lot with William Girdler Gridler. I can never remember what his surname is pronounced, but
it's Girdler.
Girdler, yeah. So he worked as a writer, producer on things like Abby, Grizzly, Day of the Animals, and The Manitou. And he also produced The Evil and Just Before Dawn, which is one of our favourites. And he's married to Joan McCall, who plays Julie in the film, and she's on the commentary track on the disc as well. And that is all I have, Justin.
Okay, well, thank you. Not a huge amount more to add, apart from I'd say it was released as People Toys originally in 1974, then was re-released with the two titles you said, like Devil Times 5 is the best known title, and then The Horrible House on the Hill was another. Strangely, some of the artwork which I sent through to you guys for it was one of it says that there were 4 children playing with People Toys, even though there's 5 children in the thing. I couldn't work out why they'd only went on that. The other 2 bits are the more salacious bits, which are obviously, I have to say, allegedly, because whether or not this is true or not, but I sent you guys a clipping from a newspaper.
Yeah, I see that here.
Does that look? It's because Gail Smale, who played Sister Hannah, this was her only film. Now, what I've read, and I get taking this with a pinch of salt because I don't know if they talked about this on the commentary track, Eric, but that she was albino.
Well, on the commentary track, they say that she was made up to look albino. They don't say that. They don't actually specify if she was albino in real life, because this clipping you've sent to me doesn't look like it's an albino.
No, but it looks like it could be her, doesn't it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But also there was allegedly, and did they talk about this being that she was the underage girlfriend of the original director?
No, they said she was the girlfriend of the original director, but they said she was about 27 at the time.
Ah, okay. So she wouldn't have been underage. So that's why you should always take things with a pinch of salt. So, and the other thing to take with a pinch of salt is allegedly that I've read that after Sean McGregor was fired from the project, he ended up in a psychiatric ward. So, and again, that's all allegedly, because I don't know if that's true, but it makes for a good story. So, I don't think there's anything else apart from obviously Leif Garrett went on to kind of semi-superstardom, didn't he, fairly soon after this. I think he's only 11 when he made this, but he went on to have a kind of music career that kind of shone very brightly, very was over quite rapidly. But he had a very popular song called "I Was Made for Dancing,"
which is the song we're playing out with, by the way.
I thought you might, yeah.
You spoiled it on the last episode, but yeah, that is the song.
Yeah, he performs that on an episode of Wonder Woman, which also stars his sister, who's in Devil Times 5, where he plays twins, one of whom is a big pop star in Wonder Woman. That was my phone, sorry.
That's okay. I thought you were going to start playing I Was Made for Dancing. But it reached,
me too.
It reached number 10 on the US Hot 100 and number 4 in the UK singles chart in early 1979. And Leif Garrett's had a bit of a checkered life since then, which I won't go into now, but it's all out there if you want to read about it.
What, the car crash and stuff, yeah.
Yeah, there was, obviously they're talking Killer Kids movies. We rewatched The Children, not the 1981, but the one from 2012, was it? Or something, or 2009, I can't remember, the British one, where children start going crazy. And there was a book back in, when I used to read like the literary nasties, as they were called back in the early 80s, all the James Herbert, The Fog, and The Rats and the Lair, and the Sean Hudson, the Night of the Crabs and Slugs, and all those movies. They did have one called The Children, and it was about all children went homicidal and started killing adults. I have to see if I can dig that one up from somewhere. But so there's been a long history of these kind of Killer Kids movies. But I don't think you just never see a movie quite like this now. It just wouldn't be made. So it has a kind of this wonderful schizophrenic feel to it. All in, and I love the not the costume, but the sort of bumblebee yellow outfit. That which one is it? The Julie has at the end. She gets murdered in this bright yellow sort of chunky knitwear, which was like pantsuit, which was kind of if you're going to die in a 70s horror movie, that's the kind of outfit you want to die in, I expect. So, right, well, Devil Times 5, we're going to be flipping, going from sort of preteens to octogenarians with our next feature. So, Joseph, what do you have for us? Do you have a trailer?
We have a TV spot for Homebodies, believe it or not.
Okay, all right. Well, after this, Joseph, take it away.
AVCO Embassy presents Homebodies. 6 old people with nothing to do but kill time. Then they discovered something that made life worth living. Murder. Homebodies, the surprise movie of the year. Do you know where your grandmother is tonight? Rated PG, parental guidance.
When 6 mild-mannered senior citizens are told that their old brownstone is going to be torn down, they don't take the news lightly. Led by a pixie-faced lady played by Paula Truman, the oldsters decide they must exert gray power and take action. After a little plotting and planning, they become an oddly lovable assortment of hitmen, in quotations, carefully getting rid of those who would attempt to disrupt their lives. This hilarious horror story will not only make you laugh, it'll also make you look twice at that sweet old lady who lives next door. Okay, that synopsis was taken from the back of the 1984 Embassy Betamax copy of Homebodies, and well, yeah, I mean, there's some dark comedy here, but I found this film to be a little depressing in some ways, but we'll get to that. But to call it a slasher film or even a proto-slasher, well, I guess it's somewhat apt. I mean, this falls more on the side of a dark, kind of a dark drama, a nihilistic drama with some dark comedy in it. And there are some, slasher elements. But there's a lot of subtext with the imagery of decaying streets being torn asunder to kind of make way for the new, gentrification, and how that ultimately underscores the treatment of the elderly as nothing more than kind of relics standing in the way of progress. The plot is quite ingenious, actually, in how common decency in favor of kind of the uncaring bureaucracy kind of leads to sort of a reversal. The elderly folks in this film, they're dealing with displacement, and they surmise that, that bureaucracy can be manipulated. And it's right there in the opening moments of the film when an accident at a construction site brings out the bureaucratic red tape, and the construction site is basically shut down. And, little old Maddie gets the idea, stems from that. And this instance eventually, leads her to basically spearhead this notion to bump off their evictors one by one, or anyone who gets in the way of moving them out of their apartment complex, in rather darkly humorous but no less shocking ways, until eventually we may no longer sympathize with the victims as they too skirt the kind of the dangers of becoming the very thing they're fighting against. The murderous set pieces are fairly aplenty, though for me the slasher element doesn't really offer any real thrills more than it does satirical bite, which is fine. But if you're looking for more of a Silent Night, Bloody Night, or a Bay of Blood, those proto slashers that obviously set a specific body count template, you may be disappointed with Homebodies. For me, I rather enjoyed the cynicism to an extent. And, especially those crumbling Cincinnati exteriors that kind of underline the dark wit. I really thought that was well done. It's a cold, depressing film, to be sure, and certainly one to look at. But the gallows humor plot kind of offsets it just enough to where you were kind of entertained rather than depressed all the time. Maybe not a movie I would go out of my way to put on rotation, but I will recommend it. And it's an interesting double feature with Devil Times 5 and how the young in that film, I guess in a manner of speaking, they go after the old to avoid displacement. And, you have the vice versa for this film. Homebodies probably has the better message overall. It's certainly better made. And I tip my hat to Paula Truman in the central role of Maddie, the old lady who basically becomes a murderous septuagenarian, or whatever you want to call them, octogenarian. I don't know the word for that. But if you want an out-and-out slasher, I would recommend Devil Times 5 for that. And Homebodies is more of a drama with slight slasher elements. And certainly there is a fair bit of suspense derived from one of the elderly characters showcasing a conscience late in the film at the kind of the murderous activities that have been going on. But overall, I really enjoyed both films. This one probably, I don't know if I enjoyed it as much as Devil Times 5. I think it's a little too bleak, but it is still a good movie. It's definitely something you should see. But Nathan, did you feel sorry for the old folks in Homebodies, and did you enjoy the film?
Yes and yes. It's a matter, like you said, that, I do feel sorry for them because I feel like they were, just being treated like garbage. Like, just like throwing them out like trash. And I'm like, that'd be aggravating. I mean, you have the one woman, the social worker or whatever she is, like, she seems like very frustrated with them because they don't want to leave. And I guess in a way I could see the frustration because she has a job to do. But I don't know. I felt like it was really sad for these people who've lived there for who knows how long, and then just suddenly being told that you got to go. That would be a kick in the teeth to anyone. I think that the movie is very interesting in the idea that, of course, some of them, have a conscience about killing and they don't like it. Whereas you have a character like Maddie who seems to actually enjoy the killing once they get started with it. And she also is not afraid to kill anyone in her group to protect herself. And so, like, I found her character to be very fascinating. The ending I thought was very interesting because, you have this like chase scene on these like paddle boats, which is kind of comical in a way. And then, spoiler alert, everyone, I'm going into spoiler territory here, but, they all like drown her or think they do. And at the end, she shows back up, which leads me to wonder, where it was going to go from there. I mean, because, they did just try to kill her, and they thought they actually had succeeded. So overall, I did feel sorry for the people in the, apartment block there that were being displaced. But, it just got interesting to me when they started turning on each other. Because, they were in it together, and then they kind of had to start turning on each other in the end there because, somebody like Maddie would go too far for some of them. Because, she was about to throw one woman, or that one lady, Miss Emily, I believe it is, off the building there, which, is pretty wild. So, yeah, I mean, overall, like, I definitely wouldn't call it a slasher, like you said. I definitely, I'd say, if you're going to call it anything, it'd be more of a proto slasher. So, yeah, overall, I liked it. More than Devil Times 5, I don't know that I would say that. I probably would find Devil Times 5 to be more rewatchable. But that's not to say Homebodies isn't good, because, yeah, I think it's actually a really good movie. Just for slasher leanings, I'll lean more towards Devil Times 5.
I would agree there. Erik, what did you think?
Yeah, I think I would agree with what you've said so far. I mean, Homebodies is definitely the better made of the two films. And it does have that same sort of strange blend of humor and horror. Although this one, as you said, it's just visually bleaker because like these interiors of these old people's apartments are very dark and dank and brown and very 70s. So the film feels really kind of early to mid 70s in its production values, and that adds to its charm, I suppose. The dingy apartment building, and it just feels quite authentic and very lived in. That you were mentioning, Joseph, about how the sort of the victims become the villains, and as I was watching it during the week, I sort of got the same sense I got from Massacre at Central High, which again is another film that starts out with victims who you're supposed to side with, but who suddenly turn into the villains halfway through. And Massacre at Central High is a film that everyone seems to love except me, and Homebodies, I was thinking everyone was going to love this except me. I mean, I don't hate the film. I thought there was lots of good things in the film, but I certainly didn't enjoy it as much as Devil Times 5. I did think that Paula Truman as Maddie was brilliant. I thought she was a real standout. There's something about her face that really fits the role. She has kind of this sort of cheekiness to her or something. I don't know. It's really good. And as Nathan was saying, I love the comedy element of the chase scenes. There's two chase scenes. There's one where Maddie chases the woman with the black hair. I can't remember the character's name, but because they're both in their 70s/80s, it's kind of a sort of little, it's not quite The Shape versus Laurie Strode or anything. And also the finale that involves the not so high-speed chase on pedalos. If you're looking for a film that's the opposite of a Michael Bay chase sequence, then that's it. And also, we're talking about opposites. This is kind of like the flip side of Cocoon. This is not the elderly as cutesy, lovable characters. This shows them as being quite sinister. I did feel sorry for that lady who was trying to relocate them, because I got the impression that she was trying to do her job and she was just kind of fed up with meeting resistance. She wasn't a bad person, but she gets so much aggro in her job role that she just has to be a bit cold and blunt with people. And I thought her murder was really shocking, actually, because it's quite graphic in a way that she's stabbed really suddenly, and you can see the knife coming out of her back, which was something I wasn't expecting for a film from 1970. This is 74 as well, isn't it? Homebodies. So I thought that was really shocking, that scene, and it really caught me off guard. But I thought that the film maybe dragged a bit in the middle, and I wasn't sure about the very, very end of the film. Nathan's already mentioned it, where Maddie shows up and announces her name. I wasn't sure, what are we supposed to read into that? It was kind of like a cliff.
I think it was more like she basically survived. She followed them back, and they were going to try to, get in with this other brownstone. And then she shows up, and she's like, "Oh, I'm here too." And they're like, "Uh-oh." I think that's basically it.
I thought it was. I didn't think it was handled as well as shock endings are generally done. So I thought that was a bit of a damn squib. But overall, as you said, I think it's definitely a better made film than Devil Times 5, but for me it's not as entertaining. Devil Times 5 has more of a popcorn element to it that's just is more my bag. Homebodies and Papa Doc and Rick's bum. There's no eye candy for me in this as far as I can remember, but I enjoyed it. It's not something I'd probably revisit though, because it's quite, as you said, there's a slight bleakness to it, even though it's quite comical. So yeah, that's my tuppence, my Tupperware.
All right, Justin, what did you think?
Well, before I say what I thought of it, I was going to ask Erik if he knows what is the link between Paula Truman and Patrick Swayze.
Oh,
who I know.
Is she in Dirty Dancing?
She is in Dirty Dancing.
Is she?
She
Who
is.
Did she play? Oh, does she Mrs. Schumacher?
Yep.
She steals the wallets and gets Johnny into trouble. I don't like her.
Well, she was 90 when she was in Dirty Dancing, and apparently she collapsed on set and had to be treated dehydration. But then she came back and finished filming like the pro that she was.
Did she get an attack of the vapors after seeing Patrick Swayze with no shirt on?
Possibly, I don't know. But yeah, she was obviously one. I think she's been compared quite often to Ruth Gordon, of course, was so good in Harold and Maude. So it's definitely that similarly kind of batty, slightly, Harold and Maude. I don't think there was any murders as such, was there? I'm trying to remember. I don't think there was. But in this, it's. For me, I was looking at some of the reviews at the time. There weren't a huge amount, but one of them was said that the film wasn't funny enough to be a black comedy, and I can kind of see where they're going. And it's kind of strange because you've got this kind of Grand Guignol kind of setup with these murders, which are quite graphic and quite gruesome in some ways. There's a murder where the guy who owns the construction company is buried in concrete. And
that scene's horrible. Actually, it's kind of depressing.
And he's not either. His head's not all. He's still alive under concrete. It's bubbling. So they take an axe or something to his head, and then they sort of. So it's. I mean, it's not mega graphic, but it's kind of this. They're quite extended, the death scenes, and because the old people move so slowly, it kind of gives this kind of weird kind of contrast with normally with, kind of murder scenes is all done very quickly. And this, it's like lots of people moving very slowly. It's almost like reminiscent of something like Burial Ground with the slow zombies. Not quite the same thing, but it was. So overall, I enjoyed it for what it was. I think it's kind of, it has, again, whereas Devil Times 5 definitely had more of a foot in the grindhouse and that kind of more cartoonish kind of feel to it, I kind of guess. Homebodies had more of that early 70s American filmmaking that you saw that was kind of more where everything, it was kind of almost anti-popcorn in some ways, where everything was slightly more serious. So like a film like George A. Romero's Martin, or all the kind of early 70s cop movies like Serpico, or all those kind of movies where everything is kind of, it's more sort of almost kitchen sink in the kind of way that there's no glamour, nothing's glamorized. It's all quite sort of, it literally is. You've got these the juxtaposition between these brand new modern buildings put up and these old brown is it brown houses, brown towns, or whatever they call it? Brownstone, that was it. Houses, which of course the irony is in the last 20 years would go for huge amounts of money, but back then were being pulled down to put these skyscrapers up. Now I think that you were saying about the social worker, I think she had been paid off to do it, because the guy who owned the company who ends up in the concrete, he said to somebody he'd paid off everyone to get them out. So I kind of got the impression that she'd been paid off to get these people out as quickly as possible.
What, so she got what she deserved?
I think so. But so I mean, overall, I liked it. I mean, it's very different. I mean, it had that kind of, the other thing it kind of reminded me a little bit of was Rosemary's Baby, where you had the kind of the kind of kooky older neighbours who turned out to be devil worshippers. And also like maybe a film like The Sentinel as well, where you've got that kind of similar thing with sort of old, kind of sinister older people, which is a strange approach, but it kind of works pretty well. I mean, there's scenes in it which almost go into slapstick. It's like when Paula Truman tries to drive the car of the social worker she just murdered, and she's doing this kind of sped up reversing and driving onto pavements, and so there's almost slapstick, and then you have this kind of real gallows humor with things like these murder scenes, which kind of go on to the point where they're humorous, and then they stop being humorous. So it has a real interesting mixture. But overall, I would agree with you guys. I mean, I think for rewatchability and what the fuckery really is, Devil Times 5 would be my choice. Having said that, I kind of Homebodies, I think, is an interesting curio. And if you're interested in the development of the slash movie and the proto slasher, then this definitely, I think qualifies as such, although it's completely atypical to what would come, 5-6 years later. But an interesting film. But again, it's not one that I would seek out to rewatch that often, I don't think.
Okay, well, background. Anybody have any background? Nathan?
The background that I had, Justin spoiled because it was that Paula Truman was in Dirty Dancing. I was going to save that for Erik, and then you took it.
Justin.
Take her, yeah. So, Erik, do you have anything for us?
I have everything that you have. You stole my notes.
Joseph, have you got anything for us?
No, I don't have anything for this movie, unfortunately.
Okay, well, I have a couple of interesting tidbits from it. I looked up at some of the old newspapers from around the time. It was made in Cincinnati, in the very cold-looking Cincinnati, and there were some great articles from its premiere when it played there. And they said, in keeping with the urban renewal theme, the cast turned up in a dump truck rather than a limousine to the big premiere, and keeping that kind of slightly kind of a comedic touch to it. They said that at the premiere there was wine and champagne and canapes, but also prunes as well. And obviously,
because she eats loads of prunes in this, and spend the whole film in the toilet.
I forgot about that. I did like that little touch where she sits out there and watches the construction workers, and she's eating the prunes like they're popcorn, like she's waiting for something to happen. I did like that touch.
Yeah, her bowels to move.
Well, apparently at the premiere they had prunes in dishes for everyone to eat. So I kind of quite like that. It's going to be almost like a little John Waters touch there. Apparently, Paula Truman, the makers of the film weren't sure. One of the dangers of making a film with a very elderly cast is, will they, be able to finish the movie? And apparently, and again, I take this a touch, a pinch of salt, because I know this is true, but it makes for a good story, is that Paula Truman did chin-ups at her audition to prove that she's in a good enough condition to act in the movie, which I kind of, because if she was 90 in 1987, then she would have only been sort of in
77.
Yeah. So, but also apparently she was legally blind, or nearly blind. So within the scenes where she's driving, she had to be towed because she couldn't actually drive an automobile. So the only other things I've got was that. A couple of reviews from the time. The Statesville Record and Landmark called it a heartwarming horror film. Said it combined horror...
Heartwarming?
No, it's very strange. It combined horror and unpredictable humour, which they said was a rare and provocative mixture. But the Minneapolis Star criticised the film for saying it wasn't dark or funny enough. So I think that's the kind of, if I had a criticism of the movie, it was that I would agree with that. I think it was either needed to be funnier or darker. And if it had gone that shade darker, it may have, done both, been funnier and darker at the same time. It might have, just elevated it a bit more. I think it was almost a little bit too subtle. But it would have been interesting to see what someone like John Waters might have made of such material. But so that's all I have on Homebodies. So what was the kind of consensus on the group for these two films, Joseph?
Well, Devil Times 5 we only had 7 comments for, which is kind of strange, but we appreciate those comments. Adam Claver had this to say: an oddly paced but strangely compelling 70s jam that features a piranha bath, cat fights, future 80s heartthrob Leif Garrett in drag, attempted seduction of the possibly mentally challenged, and Boss Hogg. What's not to love? Chris Stanton, meanwhile, feels differently. He says, here's my 2 out of 5 star review on Letterboxd. I love the vintage shooting location, which is Lake Arrowhead, but the film is poorly written and directed with no suspense, although many from the cast try hard. It only comes to life in the last third, which features an honestly impressive death by piranhas in a bathtub sequence. For Homebodies, we had 12 comments, and Graham Wright says, absolutely tremendous black comedy, surprisingly gory in places, and some of those old folks are brutal. And John Carell writes, I thought it was a cool premise, but the film left me cold, and the ending was confusing. So I think you weren't alone there, Erik.
Good.
Yep. Everyone young and old, follow us on Facebook and Instagram to stay up to date on what we are doing. Listen on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and about 1 billion other podcatchers, both good and bad. We're also on Patreon, and you can help support the show for as little as $1 per month. And we have a very wide range of exclusive content for those who choose a custom tier. Back to school and social security statements can be lobbed our way at the Hysteria Continues at gmail.com.
Excellent. And I don't think we have any feedback for this show, do we?
No feedback this week.
No. So get writing in, because we do like getting some feedback. But that means without further ado, let's see which way Erik goes, whether he swings old or young with his joke of the week.
Well, I've one of each.
Oh, you made one up that quickly?
Yeah.
Okay, well, here's his first joke of the week.
It's my joke of the week. It's so freaking fantastic.
Okay, this is inspired by Leif Garrett. Okay, I actually have 3 Leif Garrett jokes if you wanted all 3, but I've chosen just one. How does a leaf turn sunlight into music? By using photosynthesizer. Like instead of photosynthesis, photosynthesizer. God. What's Leif Garrett's favourite actor? Russell Crowe. Russell. Leif Russell.
Oh, my goodness.
Do you want my Homebodies joke?
It can't possibly get any worse, so go ahead.
What do old people like to eat? Elderberries.
Oh, my God.
Oh, my God.
You are all welcome.
Well, I think you topped or you bottomed yourself, one or the other. On
oh,
those.
my goodness.
So right. Well, thank you, Erik. Yes, well, and thank you, Josh Grattan, for choosing those 2. It's been fun to revisit them, and I hope you enjoyed what we had to say about them. So, next time, it's not Erik, it's Nathan, isn't it? Nathan, what have you got for us?
Well, I'm going to go modern yet again, and I have decided to go with Happy Death Day.
Okay. That's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I think it'll be fun to discuss.
Excellent.
Time loop slasher,
one of our favourites. So excellent. Good stuff. And we're playing out with, I think we've already mentioned.
Spoiled on the I Madman episode. It is I Was Made for Dancing by Leif Garrett.
Fantastic. Okay. Excellent. Well, thank you for listening to the Hysteria Continues. I hope you enjoyed the show. Remember to write in and let us know what you thought about it. And also join us over on Patreon, where they say, as Joseph said, there's plenty of content. Must be hundreds of hours of exclusive content on there now.
Hundreds of episodes at that, too.
Exactly. So all good. So, okay, well, thank you for listening. And so we'll play out with a little bit. We'll get our satin short shorts on, and we'll wiggle around to this. So say goodbye to the good people.
You dirty horse.
Erik, we've spoken to you about that.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.